This is the brand new Porsche 911 GT3 SC, a cabriolet from the Porsche GT department, which in principle feels a little bit wrong, surely. It's a bit like putting panniers on your time trial bike or running Windows on your Apple Mac. So to try to unravel what seems like a bit of an automotive anomaly, we're going to chat to Porsche's Mr. GT. And we're also going to delve into the Porsche archives to see if the new SC has any direct ancestors. This episode is driven by Hagerty, who, in case you don't know, provide car insurance that's designed by drivers for drivers. So, if you have a special car that you don't drive every day, like one of these perhaps, then take a trip to hagerty.com/Henry, or pick up the phone, give them a call, and speak to a like-minded enthusiast about a quote. Let's start with some of the basics first before we get to the nuance, and that means the engine, which, as the name suggests, is from the GT3. So the 4-litre naturally aspirated flat six, putting out 502 brake horsepower and 331 pounds-feet of torque, and revving to 9,000 RPM. And now let's hear a different voice. Andreas Preuninger has spent the last quarter of a century in charge of Porsche's fabled GT department. But as much as he's associated with Weissach's more hardcore offerings, he also has a soft spot for a soft top. This feels like quite a you car, because you'd like a cabriolet. You own a 993 cabriolet? Yeah.
I'm actually really a cabriolet guy. I like to drive with the top down, especially in the summertime. I just think you're much nearer to the landscape you're traveling through. Yeah. It adds value to the driving when you're just driving for the sake of driving. Yeah. And that's why we thought, hey, why shouldn't we do that and try that on a GT3? We had the Speedster, we had the Spider RS, or RS Spider, and as hardcore cabriolets with a lightweight roof that needs some fumbling around when the rain's setting in. So we had a lot of voices in our customer base that said, hey, we need a convertible GT3 or GT car where we can open the hood between two rainy clouds and enjoy the driving more often. Yeah. We don't care if it's a couple kilos more, but we don't like kilos. So we had to find a way to position a special convertible, a very, very sporty one. And there was this day when we had this Carrera 4 Cabriolet that was a prototype from our dear colleagues of the series development, and it was on the way to get scrapped. And we said, okay, maybe we need it for some time more, so we want to try something. Yeah. And we had a GT3 as well that was a prototype, an early car that unfortunately we have to throw cars away sometimes. And we matched these two cars and made one out of these cars, out of both cars. So we took all the components, suspension, drivetrain, powertrain, everything interior from one car to the other. And just to try it, just to feel it out, because you can't do that on PowerPoint. Right. You have to feel it. And we were like, some people had doubts because Cabriolet and GT3, might not go well together. But everybody that drove the car came back all smiles. That was the winner in the category most smiles per miles, really. Yeah. For the whole development team, we said, okay, we have something here. Yeah. And let's try to make it as light as possible and still keep the fully automated roof. And I think that's something for our customers as well. And I hope it is.
So how have they made it as light as possible? Well, as standard you get magnesium wheels, which save a total of 19 pounds or 8.6 kilos. It's also unsprung mass. And talking of unsprung mass, PCCB, carbon ceramic brakes, they come as standard too, saving another 44 pounds or 20 kilos. The wheels aren't the only magnesium parts either, because the roof also incorporates the metal with the atomic number 12, although that's not actually specific to the new SC, because it's standard across all the current 992 cabriolets. And, as in its brethren, it will go up or down at the touch of a button in just a dozen seconds, at speeds of up to 31 miles an hour. Anyway, other lightweight bits are slightly harder to see, like the lightweight battery, which is tucked away under there, saving another £9 or 4 kilos compared to a standard one. Underneath the rear of the car there is also a carbon fibre anti-roll bar and a carbon fibre shear panel. More obvious are the lightweight carbon fibre doors and front wings from the ST that give the sides a much more sculpted look. Obviously no rear seats in this one, so again,
it's not a softie. It's a driver's car. It's a hardcore cabriolet. It's no PDK option. Sorry, guys. And it adds to the character of the car.
Yeah.
They have a manual in the car. For me, it's a little bit. It's more as a cabriolet, and but it's different than a speedster. So it's maybe we should have called it the Cabster or the Speedolet. So something in between. But it's a proper true GT car. And at 1,497 kilos with a full tank, this is a super lightweight convertible.
Yeah.
Because we have a penalty of about 70 kilos of the fully automated roof. But by adding all these other lightweight components to the car, we could keep the weight below 1,500. And that called for deletion of rear seats and deletion of PDK option as well.
Yeah.
So it doesn't interfere with the customer base that the GT3 S convertible has, for example. This is the driver's car for the weekends when you maybe not taking the motorcycle, rather taking the car and want to enjoy driving for the sake of driving.
Before we get too caught up in idyllic thoughts of sweeping along sunny mountain passes, let me just bring things back to reality with a few words on legislation. There was another reason for Porsche wanting to keep the weight on this as low as possible, other than the obviously sort of intrinsic principle of having a GT car weighing as little as possible and being lightweight. You see, by keeping the car within the bounds of the already existing GT3 Touring, they meant they didn't have to re-homologate this for all the emissions. So by really striving to keep it within that, not offering it with PDK, which would have added another 28 kilos or so, it meant the development time for this could be an awful lot shorter. Obviously though, much of the development time they did have would have been spent on honing a unique suspension setup, wouldn't it? And in terms of suspension, the chassis underneath it, in terms of, I suppose, torsional stiffness, but also suspension setup, where does this car sit?
That was the interesting point why we wanted to try it. Although we knew that the convertible body in white of the 992 is super stiff.
Yeah, it's got so much better over the years.
It was great on the 991 already. The Speedster showed that, the 991 Speedster. So we didn't have a lot of anxiety to match all the parts and not changing anything to the suspension setup when we built up the first prototypes. But our intention was clearly to look at spring rates, to look at damper valving and everything. And we even reserved capacity in the engineering departments to be able to address that. And then we drove the car, completely unchanged settings of dampers and springs from the GT3 Touring, and it worked brilliantly. So we really thought, okay, we don't have to do anything. And everybody that drove it, the driving dynamics guys, they're mostly very keen on having the utmost in performance and the utmost in precision and handling. Despite this being not a track car, we still have a track advisor. As a matter of fact, it was developed there partially as well. But we really tried around with the suspension, but it never got better than the stock values of the Touring. So it was not to save money. It was pure maybe luck, maybe not, because it's not heavier than a Touring with a certain spec. And so, no, sorry, we didn't change anything because we didn't have to.
It's worth just mentioning that the SC does have the GT3's rear-wheel steering system, which you might remember was deleted from the ST.
Without any dampening roof or paddings around you, it is even more present. It's even more nearer to the driver's ear. It's not as ear-piercing, I would say, as a Spider RS.
No, because you haven't got, obviously, the intakes there.
That's because of the intake system. But the sound is absolutely satisfying. It's not obtrusive. You don't harass people going through towns, but it has this deep GT3 sound that is, you can drive it quite calmly and not almost not silently, but subdued, I would say, but it still has this mechanical aura and this exhaust noise, even at lower RPMs. And if you throw the stick, that thing is, I mean, the noise, the fury, the connection, and it's really a GT3 like everybody wants it to be. And sound is, if you're talking about sound, the more I talk to customers, and I'm trying to do this a lot, it is such a vital, important issue. I think the GT3 wouldn't have that much success if it wouldn't have this noise that it has, this not engineered, very visceral, mechanical, transparent, and honest noise. And this is amplified in an open car.
In terms of spec, this is your spec, so you can have.
It's a team's decision, including the marketing colleagues. We always had guards red. I mean, it's a very classical color, Porsche color. It's been there for, don't let me lie, 20 years or more. I think more. It was on the G model already, so 30 years plus. It's been there. Let's say forever.
A long time. Yes.
And all the Speedsters were communicated in this guards red, 991 as well, and the first G model as well. And it is a little bit kind of a speedster, but an everyday speedster. So we decided to try it in red. We love the California gold wheels. That's a new color that came out last year. I think it's a great combination. As a matter of fact, you can choose whatever you want. I mean, there's several colors to choose from. But yeah, this is the spec I would order personally if I would be in the favorable position to be able to afford a thing.
And you've got bucket seats in this, but
these are optional. These are optional because we still have people that don't like to get in and out of a bucket seat, which I personally, I don't mind because as soon as you sit in it, there's no better seat for me. Drive for hours and hours without any aches. They're a little bit lighter as well, and in a GT car, I think it's very important to have a bucket seat. This is just my opinion. You need PCCB and you need a bucket seat. PCCB is standard. Bucket seat is an option, but there's just more information that flows through your body, through your back, through your hip, through your behind and everything. So you get more information out of the car, and it is more the GT3 motorsport feeling that you need for controlling the car very precisely. At least I do. So I prefer always the seats, and I think they look so lean and slim.
All of which tees us up nicely for another red Cabriolet with bucket seats. And as that one's residing in the museum, I thought I'd just show you a couple of other interesting open-air Porsches first, starting with a 356C police car, which looks rather fabulous with its little blue carbuncle up over there. All the police officers had to do specific training on a 356 at Weissach, and there was one slight hitch. You just in case think cruising around in a 356 doing your duty all day was wonderful, because anytime the temperature got above 5 degrees Celsius or 41 Fahrenheit, they had to drive around with the roof down. Of course, it's not just road cars that Porsche has taken the roof off. Behind me is the 917 in Can-Am form, the 91710, which won 6 of the 9 rounds in 1972. It's a bit tenuous, I know, but to be honest, it's just fabulous, isn't it? Seeing that rear end exposed with its 2 turbochargers and its incredible flat 12. And then what I really wanted to show you most pertinently for today, this, which is a 1993 968 Club Sport. Rear seats removed, bucket seats in the front, 50 kilos lighter than a standard 968, riding 20 millimeters lower, and with 17-inch cup wheels on it. They built 1,538 of the coupes, but only one Cabriolet, which is this. Of course, you don't have to have guards red and bucket seats, as the other car we have back in the studio demonstrates. This one has the optional street-style package with pyro red decals available on the front arches and even inside the wheel rims, if you so wish. Inside there are various other options you can spec as well. If you go for the standard seats, then you can have these middle panels on the back and the seats down here in this new woven leather, which is sort of quite cool. It's a bit Minecraft maybe, but quite like that. And in the glove box as well. Gear shifter You can have this in open pore walnut as it is here, with the shift pattern picked out in red on top. Back here, you've got some storage, which is optional, so it could just be a big open space, but they've got this sort of top loading covered there, and that's 80 litres of extra storage space in there. Practical plus the stuff that's in the front, which you can figure flight case in as well. Graphics, now up on this screen, it's the correct car, and it will come in the colour that you choose the car in as well. And I really like actually the dials up here, so it's obviously still digital, but they've made it look more analog somehow, so they've just updated the graphics a bit, and it looks really quite three-dimensional. I do like that. Finally, in here, this I haven't seen before, the empty shield. It's a new design graphic optional thing. I'm not quite sure about that. I should have mentioned the wind deflector too, deployable in just 2 seconds at up to 74 miles an hour, although to be honest I'd rather just be buffeted by the wind, as I think it's the automotive equivalent of a hairnet. Practical, but not really pretty. And talking of aerodynamics,
the only thing that we did was this to put this gurney here on the back end. It's on the Touring, but it's more to prevent too high, too steep angles of the rear wing, which are aesthetically challenging for me. I like that thing to be down there as long as possible before it unfolds. And aerodynamically, definitely the underbody is like GT3. So you have you don't have any lift on the car, not even at 300 plus. So there's always slight amount of downforce. So it handles beautifully, but it can't drive on the roof like a GT3 S. Almost can. So that is not the target, and it's not a car for the track. You can use it on track days if you like. Suspension is the same, weight is the same, but it's made for soulful driving, winding roads, summertime, and smell of fresh cut grass, forests. That's the thing that was in mind, that we had in mind to really enjoy the driving. We have the gearbox that is 8% shorter than on the first generation. We showed it already on the base car. Something that we should mention here is this car is not limited. So it's no limitation on the car. It's limited by our production capacities, as a matter of fact. But it won't be like a run of only 2,000 cars like we did on the ST, for example, but that puts us in a position, because it's homologated under the small series homologation, that we're allowed to leave out these beeping things in the car, like the speed warning thing that you have to switch off in a GT3, which can be done very swiftly and cleverly, but here we don't need it at all. And this lane change or lane assist, whatever it's called in English. So we don't need it here. So we rely on a capable driver that is concentrating on the driving, which in 99.9 period.
A lot of people very happy.
Be like that. So this is maybe another plus, something on the plus side for our customers out there. And the rest, as you see, rear end, front end. I mean, the only part that it shares with the convertible, the normal convertible, is the rear fender.
Okay.
But we have this special stone guard here in black, only on speedsters, by the way. This is allowed to wear it too. And this part here, this is bespoke, completely new. Because we always think the air intake should be with a grill, because all of our family members feature the same or similar air intakes, and front lid carbon fiber as well on GT3. Speedster-ish, as well as the black A-pillar, the black window frame.
So that you get that nice sleek kind of when the roof's up.
For me, it makes a sleeker look when the car is closed, and the lower suspension and the little bit negative pitch the car has. I mean, for me, it looks so beautiful even when the top is closed. Especially the 992 is the most beautiful cabriolet we ever made, because if you look at, for example, my old 993, it's like a little bit like that, like a kid would paint a car. So, and this is really fluently, and the coefficient drag and the values, the aerodynamic values are the same in a coupe, so you don't lose anything. And through this very, very stiff upper part of the roof, with magnesium in it, magnesium sheets. It is make not any more wind noises than a normal coupe. So there's almost no downsides on having a convertible if you compare it to a coupe. Maybe the price, but
were you surprised just how easily it almost came together? And I don't mean to belittle it, but it sounds a bit like one of those things that you sort of go, how on earth? It seems almost too good to be true. You must have sort of thought, we don't have to change suspension. We can put these on. We can keep the weight below by adding.
You're right.
Normally,
a development of a car takes at least, even if it's a second gen, 3 years. If it's on a new platform, sometimes a little bit more even. This one we did in 15 months. But I mean, honestly, there's all parts, they were existing, they're known, but the combination is the novelty.
Yes.
And you still have to engineer a lot of things, because does this carbon fiber door fit exactly from the joints to the body in white of the convertible? Everybody would say, yeah, sure, but there are small, slight tolerances, and you have to fight with all that stuff. And you have to do all your security testing, like crashing the cars, for example, and to prepare the production colleagues for the production of that car, for the different logistic flows that need to be addressed. And so you can't do it overnight. No. Definitely not. Yeah.
But I suppose from one of those sort of concepts, like you say, that initially you sort of think Cabriolet and GT department, that shouldn't go together, for something that intrinsically seems like that, it's almost like it's meant to be.
I mean, we were thinking and discussing this since the 991 Speedster, to be honest, because there were so many people say, I don't want to get out and fumble around, and it's so easy, and it looks so nice on the Cabriolet, on the normal Cabriolet. Why didn't you do that? And not limited. Yeah, we did. Sometimes we take some time.
Yeah.
But finally, it's here. Yeah. And as always, it's my favorite GT at the moment. And spring is beginning, and I'm really looking forward to see the reaction of people getting out, because it's really an added value to have this engine in an open car. And for me, manuals still matter.
Yeah.
Just a fun drive, absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andy.
You're welcome.
We should, of course, mention the SC's price, which starts at $273,000 or £200,000. A lot, admittedly, but if you took a touring, added all the lightweight options this gets as standard, factored in the ST's carbon panels and the usual premium for a Cabriolet, you can very easily plot a path to those numbers. And what about the whole concept of a Cabriolet from the GT department? Well, if it was taking the place of the next RS, then I'd say it was diluting the brand, but it's not. And an open-air GT3 concert is obviously appealing, so it must just be the automation of the roof mechanism that's the sticking point. But is that really such a big deal?
I do understand why Porsche has done this, and actually, more to the point, why owners were probably calling for this car. Because I think with the Spiders and the Speedsters cars, which I both really love, particularly the Spider, it was often a case for owners of thinking, well, I just can't quite be bothered to stop and put the roof down, or stop and want to put it back up again. It felt like a bit of a faff. Those roofs were the equivalent of sitting on the sofa, seeing the remote on the other side of the room and thinking, I'll just watch what's on this channel and not bother changing it.
They say the best car is the one that you actually use rather than leave in the garage. It's the gas barbecue that gets lit every weekend in the summer, as opposed to the charcoal one that is only dug out twice a year. And I think this might just be the roof equivalent. No, it's not as pure as something totally manual, but if an automatic Cabriolet roof actually gets used much more often, perhaps it is the better solution.